Yeah, Trent communicated with me late last night. I don't know exactly what time it was, but it was pretty late, and he had informed me that Shad had called him, and they had talked about the decision that they made, and that he informed him that he would like me to be the interim. So Trent had that conversation with me. So it was, I don't know what time it was. It was pretty late, and then came back in this morning and kind of let it rip.
We're trying to move on, but did you guys game plan without Urban Meyer last night?
Yes.
I did the math, and I think you got a really good chance of finishing with more career wins as an interim coach than Urban has as a head coach. Don't.
Nothing. I won't say anything.
That last part is how the press conference began yesterday, with the reporters and Darrell Bevell very jocular and loose, and a little shade thrown at Urban Meyer. Hey, I did the math. You can finish with more wins as the interim coach than the guy who just got fired had. And you hear somebody laughing, and Bevell doesn't do the straight-faced, he just kind of goes right along with it. But the amazing part to me, and we didn't play all of it, but the takeaway that I had was two things. One, Urban Meyer left Wednesday night, and they didn't know anything. They being the assistant coaches who remained at work.
Right.
And two, and this is based on other stuff I've been hearing, I don't think they had any reason to think anything was amiss, because I think Urban had a habit of leaving early anyway. So it's not like, where's Urban? Gee, is it possible he's fired? I just think it was any other Wednesday night. I really do. And then Darrell Bevell gets the call from Trent Baalke late about what happened. And when you watch the whole press conference, and it's available at Jaguars.com, you do not get the impression that there was any sense of, gee, where's Urban? This isn't right. He's always here with his sleeves rolled up and the midnight oil burning with the rest of it. And that's been one of the big criticisms that the various people who don't like Urban Meyer have been spreading around to the media. And this goes all the way back to training camp. He'd leave, and the other ones would stay there and do the work.
It's just like, what are you doing? I mean, this is the kind of thing. This is why he probably felt like he could just stay in Ohio and get the hell out of Dodge. And, but after that Thursday night game, because he just had this sense of entitlement where it's like, yeah, my assistants are going to do it for me. It doesn't matter what I do. And that whole situation, it's hard to believe just how much of an abject disaster that Urban Meyer was as a head coach in the NFL. I mean, the whole thing with Josh Lambo started breaking basically because we were on air the other day, Mike, during PFTPM. And then, it just turns out that a few hours later, as I'm, having some dinner and some drinks with a few buddies of mine who were in town for the Chiefs and Chargers game last night, that it turns out, one of them looks at his phone and it's like, hey, look, Urban Meyer just got fired. It's 9:30 Pacific, which means it is 12:30 Eastern in Jacksonville. And that was just one of these crazy things. And it's breaking overnight. This coach got fired. And I guess they're kind of doing it by the cover of darkness so that Shad Khan doesn't have to really say anything. And he said he's not going to say anything until after the season, I guess. So, whatever you're going to do. But my goodness, what a wild situation it's been in Jacksonville. And they've got a lot of work to do to get that franchise right.
And hey, look, Shad Khan ultimately did the right thing. He did what he had to do.
Sure.
And when you've made a mistake, because look, I saw. And I think you sent me the tweet yesterday from a prominent national member of the media who said that Shad Khan picked Urban Meyer over all these other guys who were interviewed. Meyer was always the guy in Jacksonville. He was the guy that Shad Khan wanted. All those other interviews were either compliance with the Rooney Rule or boosting Urban Meyer in relation. Look how good he is. He easily gets the job over all these other guys that we've interviewed. We interviewed all these guys. Meyer's the guy. Meyer was always the guy. Always the guy. And Shad Khan realized, I made a mistake. So he admits it instead of doubling down, and he moves on. And he needed to. And, there's a sense out there. I don't want to get too deep into the weeds because we have other things to get to. But there are people in the media who are looking at what's transpired over the last week, and they're saying, okay, how did this all begin to reach critical mass? It started last Saturday with a report from NFL Network, which, again, that's not a title that's licensed to some independent company. NFL Network is the NFL. It is owned by the NFL. It is operated by the NFL. The employees of the NFL Network are employed by the NFL and its 32 teams. Their paychecks literally are signed by Roger Goodell. So NFL Network hits with a Saturday, not Sunday, a Saturday report with 3 different things about Urban Meyer, consistent with what had been percolating out there anyway, and it was hard to get to the bottom of everything. Nobody was talking. They were talking enough to light the fuse, but they weren't talking enough for the fuse to hit the bomb, if that makes any sense. All of a sudden, the bomb drops from NFL Network, partially owned by the Jaguars, on Saturday, not Sunday. These reports always land on Sunday. Lands on Saturday. And throws a hell of a wrench into the Jaguars' preparations for their game against the Titans. And Urban Meyer's reeling, and he has to address it in the post-game press conference. And there's a thought in the media, and I don't know this, but when you consider the fact that the entity that reported these events is partially owned by the Jaguars themselves, there's a sense that's emerging that this was no boating accident, that this was a setup. And we're dealing with arguments and lawsuits and allegations that John Gruden was set up. Is it possible that the Jaguars, because I always think of NFL Network being a sword for the shield, if that makes any sense. No, a shield for the shield. That there's certain things we can't talk about. We had the comments from Mike Silver last week, who worked 8 years at NFL Network, saying there are certain things you just couldn't touch, certain things you just can't say. You're working for the NFL. But now we see where the shield can be used as a sword, potentially. I'm not saying any of this is true, but these are circumstances, now that the dust is settling, that you look at and you say, this is odd. This is strange. And again, the outlet that got this going is owned by, in part, the Jaguars. So just something to keep an eye on. Not that anything else is going to happen with it. We haven't heard from Urban Meyer, though. When we eventually heard from John Gruden, what did we hear? It was a hit job. I wonder if Urban Meyer is going to say, I got a real problem with the fact that these reports were given credence by a media conglomerate that Shad Khan partially owns.
Well, right. And I mean, it could be something like that where he starts saying that, what is this hit job? And look how I was set up. But then I also think that you got to factor in the guy who's now, I think, the Ronan Farrow of the NFL and Rick Stroud of the Tampa Bay Times, right? I mean, because that's where the whole Josh Lambo thing comes out from Rick Stroud of the Tampa Bay Times. And then he, of course, is the same reporter who broke the story about Antonio Brown and the potential fake COVID vaccination card. And then that turned out to be true. And then look what happens here. So I think, if I'm somebody in the NFL and I hear, hey, Rick Stroud's been asking about you, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this is not probably pretty good for me. It's not good for me.
Hey, I tweeted yesterday, there's plenty of Washington fans that are saying, hey, Rick, do Daniel Snyder next. So, but now in the Lambeau thing, and this is where it gets odd too, because the way that the events transpired, it creates the impression that Lambeau was the final straw. I don't think that's the case. I think the wheels were already in motion and that Lambeau was coincidental. And I think the Jaguars would push back on the veracity of Lambeau's account as it relates to this notion he was kicked and cussed out by the guy that Shad Khan just fired. And there's still unfinished business there, because I think that the Jaguars had an obligation to report that to the league once they became aware of it under the personal conduct policy, and I don't think they did. And, of course, the league has no comment. Even though Meyer's gone, the Jaguars, if the league wants to do anything about it, that's how it goes. We know what the rules say. Whether or not anything happens, it all comes down to the league, whether they want to do something about it. And maybe the league's just happy to have this endless drama with Urban Meyer over with as well.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.